What's up, teens? Welcome aboard. Hey, I'm going to be teaching from this different setting. I'm sorry for the different setting, but I am up in northern Wisconsin with my in-laws and taking time to be with them while we can't be with other people because they're out of state. So we are here, and I wanted to make sure that we keep the study going. So I have just a little time that I want to take to keep thinking about wisdom. And actually today we're going to talk about the opposite of wisdom, but would you do this first? Would you share the video? Would you make sure you got your Bible? You can open it to chapter 1 of Proverbs. All right, we're going to dig in. And actually I need to start my timer, make sure I keep this kind of concise for you guys. I would ask you this. We've been talking about the fear of the Lord. We've been talking about wisdom. So tell me this. What is the hardest part of living in the fear of the Lord for you? Where do you find it hardest to treat God as the loudest voice in every conversation or the biggest person in every room? I mean, I'll let you think for a second. Often, because I can't hear you, feedback, it's hard for me to leave time for you to think. So where is it hardest for you to live with the fear of the Lord? Okay, in the last study in Proverbs 9, we discovered that folly, right? Lady Folly is not living in the fear of the Lord, and eventually she leads to destruction. She tantalizes us with the prospect of kind of sweet treats that bring destruction. And in this study, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take time to see a couple places in the earlier chapters where Lady Folly is really throwing out things on the banquet table, right? The banquet table that she sets leads to death. And I asked you to draw that and think about that. And I want to give you 3 voices that are really the voice of folly dressed up. Or we could think about it this way, 3 dishes that the Lady Folly is bringing in the course of her destructive menu. So let's read Proverbs chapter 1, verses 10 through 19 to listen to the voice of the sinner. Proverbs 1, 10, 19. 10 through 19, it says, "My son, if sinful men entice you, do not give in to them. If they say, 'Come along with us, let's lie in wait for innocent blood. Let's ambush some harmless soul. Let's swallow them alive like the grave and whole like those who go down to the pit. We will get all sorts of valuable things and fill our houses with plunder. Cast lots with us, and we will all share the loot. My son, do not go along with them. Do not set foot on their paths, for their feet rush into evil, and they are swift to shed blood. How useless to spread a net where every bird can see it. These men lie in wait for their own blood. They ambush only themselves. Such are the paths of all who go after ill-gotten gain. It takes away the life of those who get it." Now, what's the voice of the sinner calling out an offering? Violence and getting your way, but also getting wealth or getting rewards that you didn't have to earn, right? But what does the voice of the sinner say in this passage? Not say, excuse me. What does it say happens to those who listen to the voice of the sinner or who go in the direction of those violent and greedy people? Well, death, right? There's death in that way. They're laying a trap for themselves. They're actually, look at the last verse, such paths of all these men lie in wait for their own blood and ambush their own selves. Now think about this, okay? Are there particular areas in your life where you're tempted by the voice of the sinner? The reason I ask that, okay, partly is it's going to be hard for you. Probably a lot of you kids that are watching this are not being talked to by friends who say, let's go be violent, or let's go rob someone or rob a bank or whatever, right? But you know what? You and I are still facing temptations that are at the root very similar to the voice of the sinner. Because you probably felt the temptation to be not necessarily violent with your hands, but to slander with your tongue, to cut people down online. And you might not be trying to steal actual riches, but you might be trying to take away someone else's honor and dignity by what you've done to them online, or steal from them some kind of undeserved honor by when you cut down others, when you slander others, when violence in our hearts doesn't have to always come out of our hands to be the same kind of deadly violence and deadly greed to get things that we didn't earn and get things that we didn't deserve. The voice of the sinner is this menu of folly brings out of unearned income and undeserved power, of violence in exploiting other people or setting a trap to hurt others, taking pleasure in using power to destroy, not to give life. Okay, I'm going to read another voice of folly. Go to Proverbs chapter 5. Proverbs chapter 5. Now this is 23 verses, but I'm going to read the whole chapter with you, okay? My son, pay attention to my wisdom. Turn your ear to my words of insight, that you may maintain discretion, and your lips may preserve knowledge. For the lips of the adulterous woman drip honey, and her speech is smoother than oil. But in the end she is bitter as gall, sharp as double-edged sword. Her feet go down to death, and her steps lead straight into the grave. She gives no thought to the way of life. Her paths wander aimlessly, but she does not know it. Now then, my sons, listen to me. Do not turn aside from what I say. Keep to a path far from her. Do not go near the door of her house, lest you lose your honor to others and your dignity to one who is cruel. Lest strangers feast on your wealth and your toil enrich the house of another. At the end of your life, you will groan when your flesh and body are spent. You will say, how I hated discipline, how my heart spurned correction. I would not obey my teachers or turn my ear to my instructors, and I was soon in serious trouble in the assembly of God's people. Drink water from your own cistern, running water from your own well. Should your springs overflow in the streets, your streams in the public squares, let them be yours alone, never to be shared. It goes on to say this. Why are you in full of your ways are in full view of the Lord, and he examines all your paths. The evil deeds of the wicked ensnare them. The cords of their sin hold them fast. For lack of discipline they will die, led astray by their own great folly. Now what's tempting in the voice of the adulteress? It's this it's pleasure, sexual pleasure, that is not rightly ours. It's exploiting someone else by taking from them the pleasures of either looking at them sexually or acting sexually with them, but not giving to them the commitment that God calls us to in marriage. Any sex outside of marriage is an act of selfishness because we are taking from someone the intimacy that God intended to only be given with the rest of our commitment of our whole person. Sex is a good gift inside of marriage because God intends that this giving of ourselves physically should be connected to a giving of our whole selves as a person, that we wouldn't take from someone intimacy that we wouldn't lay our lives down for. But the adulteress and any kind of immorality is this exploitation, this misuse of sex against another person, where we just try to, just like the violent people, steal something for us that isn't ours. That intimacy is something serious, and the consequences are death. And I know that teens, as I talk with you on this study, the fact that you're on YouTube right now, or you're on Facebook, there are immoral images coming through Snapchat or TikTok. There are girls dancing on TikTok, and there are young guys watching this study right now who know that might not technically be porn because people technically have clothes on, but that you don't want other people looking at your sister in a video like that because you know what it's all about. And those people making those videos are not making those videos in all of their clothes because they know what it's all about. And even if they're deceived, they're still playing into the hands of the trap of the adulteress, of the death that comes through trying to get or give sexual intimacy and sexual pleasure outside of the good arrangement of marriage that God has given. This is not something that can be exchanged without our whole lives. And when we try to give or get sexual intimacy and sexual pleasure outside of the bounds of marriage, we actually are, we're putting our life on the line because it's deadly. It's sin against God. And that's what, again, short-term pleasure, long-term pain. That's the voice of folly. That's what she's serving up at dinner. Let's look at one more, chapter 6, the voice of folly in verses 6 through 11 of chapter 6. It says, "Go to the ant, you sluggard, consider its ways and be wise. It has no commander, no overseer or ruler, yet it stores its provisions in summer and gathers its food at harvest. How long will you lie there, you sluggard? When will you get up from your sleep? A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest, and poverty will come on you like a thief, and scarcity like an armed man." Now, what's tempting about that? Well, work is hard. Work has challenges. You get tired. I'm tired today, right? But the consequences are poverty. The consequences are not having what you need to survive, not having what you need to live, not having what you need to eat, starvation and death. The sluggard tempts you, a short-term nap for a long-term poverty. When actually what wisdom says is get up and control that impulse and work hard for the future. Look at the ant. Nobody had to tell the ant to get up in the morning and work. Now, teens, I know I don't want to be stepping on your toes, but I'm just going to shoot straight with you. You are not at school right now, and if your parents are hounding you and have to be all over your back to do your schoolwork, you need to think about these verses, because God's given you a job to do. And right now, though you might not be working for pay, you have an opportunity to grow your mind and prepare yourself for a life of meaningful work. If you want to do good in God's world, if you want to do good work that makes God's world a better place, that lifts up others, that cares for others, that changes the world for good, whether you're going to be a mother with your working energy and your life, caring for kids that you raise up in the Lord, or whether you're going to be an astronaut or a chef or a politician or a pastor, you have right now an opportunity, even though there's no teacher over your back. The ant gets up and works without somebody telling her to. You and I need to be the kind of people who get up to work hard because we want to add value with the strengths God's given. We want to grow the strengths God gives so we can add more value. Don't give in to the YouTube, iPhone, Instagram, Snapchat sewer that just sucks you away from productive work, kids. All right? There are plenty of other voices that folly brings, but I wanted to focus on these three. The sinner, the violent, greedy sinner, the adulterous tempting, and the sluggard tempting. I hope you will take time to identify their voices and turn away from them so that you and I can take the path of wisdom and life. Love you guys. See you tomorrow.